Hey everyone, Jay Ferguson here. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in and watching me here just jabber on about some records. Now I noticed in the sort of the YouTube vinyl community field that one of the categories of videos that often shows up is kind of like recent finds or records that perhaps somebody who has a channel might have found on eBay or bought at a shop or found at a record fair. So I kind of thought, I'm going to do one of those. I've accumulated, I buy records frequently, and I've accumulated a few things over the past few months. I'm not going to present everything. Not everything is probably worth showing, but these are some things that I thought would be interesting to share. So I hope you feel the same way. Before I start, feel free to like or follow or comment if there's anything here that strikes your fancy or anything that you might know about more than I do. So the first, I'm going to start off with a couple of 7-inch singles, and one of them I already had, but I found just, within the past month or so, I found a much nicer copy of it here at a local store in Toronto that's been around for 1 million years, called Rotate This. It's an EP, a British EP by the band The Move. And that is right there. It's called Something Else from The Move. And it was released in 1968. And it's basically, there's the back cover, the gentleman in the move, sort of hanging around in a park, perhaps. But anyhow, I'm a big fan of Roy Wood, who's the principal songwriter in the band. And I love their record. So this is like a 5-song live EP. And they don't do any of their own songs. It's basically 5 covers. They do So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star by the Byrds, fantastic version. Stephanie Knows Who, which is a song by Love. Something Else, the Eddie Cochran song. It'll Be Me, which was written by Jack Clement, but I know it as done by Jerry Lee Lewis, so I assume that's who they're referencing. And Sunshine Help Me, which is a song I did not know, but it's by Spooky Tooth, a band that I have never listened to. But they're played live. I think it's recorded at the Marquee, I believe. Sorry. Forgive me if... I thought it was for some reason. It might say that somewhere. And my research department was clearly on vacation. But anyhow, they're wild, really rocking versions. If you know The Move and you like their sort of heavier material as their career went on, then you can sort of imagine their take on some of these songs. So anyhow, there it is. Something Else by The Move. I originally found a copy of this, like about 15 years ago at a store in Brooklyn called Record Grouch. And that copy, I'd never seen it before in a store, and so I bought it, but it was a little bit beat up. But anyhow, I found a beautiful, beautiful copy of it here in town. I was happy to do so, and that's on the, of course, the Regal Zonophone label, for the folks who like to see the labels. And anyhow, it's beautiful, and it's on a nice glossy, those classic UK flip-back sleeves with the glossy cover and everything like that. So anyhow, I was really happy to upgrade a copy of an EP that I really love. I'm going to show another 7-inch single and another LP, and both of these came from, I ordered them, ordered them online, and they both came from Sweden. The first one is a record that's actually an American record, and wonderful 7-inch single. This is a band. They only released 2 7-inch singles, and then there were some posthumous compilations later on CD and everything like that. But I had one of them, and then finally I found this one online. So I'm glad to have both of their 7-inch singles from the 70s. And it's a band called the Bratz from New York. There's the front of the sleeve. You can see it in the glare there with some fantastic haircuts. And there's the B-side. The 2 tracks are Be a Man and Quaalude Queen. The Bratz are Ricky Rivets on guitar, David Leeds on bass, Keith Ambrose on vocals, and Sparky Donovan on drums. And the drummer actually wrote the A-side of this single. But the most famous member, I think, of this band is Ricky Rivets. And I think that's Ricky Rivets right there. Maybe someone might be able to correct me, but I have a feeling that's him there. Now, Ricky Rivets was in a band called Actress, which was like a pre-New York Dolls band featuring Johnny Thunders and maybe Arthur Kane as well. But anyhow, so he was sort of in the pre New York Dolls, and then I think he left. Maybe he left Actress, and then they became the New York Dolls, et cetera, et cetera. I could be a little foggy on the timeline, but anyhow, wonderful 7-inch single. And if you like the New York Dolls, you would like this single as well. Kind of really like hyped up, energetic rock and roll. Kind of almost a little too. Well, I was going to say this is from 19. So I think this record was recorded in 1974, but maybe not released until 1977. That's what I gather, but I could be wrong. It does say 1974 on the label. It's on the Whiplash label. If you can see right there. I don't know if you can see it very well. Let's see. Yeah, the Bratz, 1974. And 1974 once again, but I believe it wasn't released till 1977. So I guess it would have been released posthumously, as the Bratz would have been broken up by then. But so if they had been broken up by then, they were almost like a little bit too late for glam, but too early for punk. They were kind of in that 74, 75 window when rock music seemed to be going through a transition of, the sort of the bands that were inspired by glam were maybe moving in, and pub rock and everything. It was moving more into the punk direction, which really would have blossomed in 76 and 77. And they were sort of caught in the middle a little bit. That's kind of just the way I see it, anyhow. But anyhow, fantastic record and super rocking. You can hear them online. Maybe I'll add a little clip.
Every boy has a mother, and there's a little lover hurting you. So when you see a boy looking so too coy, just his mother coming on through. Aren't you glad? Tell me, aren't you glad? Aren't you glad you got a mother too?
Be a Man is a fantastic single, and their other single is great as well, so I'm very happy to have both. I was thinking of doing a sort of another all 7-inch single episode, so I think I'll feature the other 7-inch single by the Bratz in that episode. But anyhow, there it is, Be a Man by the Bratz. Yeah, and I ordered it all the way from Sweden, and very happy to track it down, so happy to find that. The next record is also an American record that I managed to get from Sweden, and it's an American band from the late 1960s. This album was released in 1968 on the Sidewalk Records label. It's the band The Smoke. Sidewalk Records was kind of, I guess they were distributed by Capitol. It was probably, like an affiliated label, but fantastic graphics on the cover there. And there's the back of the cover. I think a lot of people refer to this as kind of like a psych record or psychedelic record. And I guess it does have some of those elements, but to me, it's much more of an orchestral pop record in the sort of a little more like the Zombies or the Left Bank style, more than pure psychedelia. You would think that from the cover, but that's not the case. This was a record. I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I remember seeing this in either the late 80s or the early 90s at a local store out there called Taz Records. And I remember thinking, that was kind of cool. Like, I should check that out. And it was $15. And I was like, I don't know it very well. And I left it behind. And I've kind of regretted it ever since. I wish I had grabbed it for that cheap price. But and there was another record there that day that I did buy, which was Begin by the Millennium. So whatever. I lost on this, but I won on getting the Millennium record. But anyhow, this record, like I said, I'd been looking for a long time. So I was very happy to track down a copy. Oh, the one other thing I want to mention about this record, and the fantastic songs on it, Self-Analysis, Gold is the Color of Thought, Philosophy, Umbrella, so many great songs on this record. And I think one of the reasons this record is probably moving up in desirability or expense as well, it's getting to be a little bit more of an expensive record even than it was, like 5 years ago, is, there's the collectability side, but the songs are so fantastic. It really does stand out as an excellent record. And it was produced by a guy named Michael Lloyd, who ended up, I think, producing some Osmonds records, but also produced a record I had when I was a kid, and that was Sean Cassidy, first record with That's Rock and Roll and what else? Oh, Da Do Ron Ron on it. Anyhow, it's just funny how he would have moved from this record all the way to Sean Cassidy. Not knocking Sean Cassidy, but anyhow, this is a wonderful record. So, like I said, I'd been looking for it for a long time, and there's another fellow who has a YouTube channel. His name is Jonas, and it's called Vinyl Stockholm. Fantastic channel. I'm sure many of you watching already know it, and if you don't, I encourage you to go seek it out. But he also has it's almost like a little online store or a page where he's selling some records, and also with a couple of other, I guess, like record collecting friends, and they're just selling records that they're either they just feel like selling, or they have duplicates of, or they don't feel like they need to own anymore. And when I started following the Vinyl Stockholm channel, I remember I noticed the link that Jonas had posted, and I went to check it out, and he had this record there, and I contacted him immediately and bought it, and it's just in beautiful condition. I also just want to show the Sidewalk label there, if you can see it in the glare. But anyhow, I was really happy to track that down on the Vinyl Stockholm store of vintage records. So I'm going to post a link to Jonas's channel, which, like I said, most of you probably already know, but also a link to his store. You may want to go and check it out and see what him and his friends have for sale. They have some rare stuff and some pretty cool stuff. There's some other things there. I was like, oh, I should buy some other things, but I was just trying to, be cool with the budget. But I recommend checking it out. So I'll post a link to it below. But anyhow, The Smoke, fantastic record. I'm just going to move some of my notes. The next record, another record that, this is a record that I had, once again, late 80s, early 90s. I found a copy of this in a junk shop in Sydney, Nova Scotia, where I have many, many relatives. And I remember buying it, it would have been $1 or something like that. And I took it home, and I think I bought it just, I didn't know anything about it, but it was $1. It looked interesting. And I bought it, maybe listened to part of it once and kind of just filed it away. And then when I had to, at one point in the 2000s, I sort of had to downsize some of the records that I had in Halifax. I was living in Toronto at the time, and I think I sold it at the time, and maybe hadn't really thought much about it. I became more familiar with the record as years gone by, and I remember thinking, why did I get rid of that fantastic record? And this is the record. It's a self-titled record by the band called The Moon. And sorry, there's the front cover. And the gentleman there looking up in a very, once again, very psychedelic artwork, and not necessarily a particularly psychedelic record. And then there's the back cover. I believe this is their second record, and it's on the Imperial label, if you can see there in the glare. But anyhow, one notable thing about this record is that it features a guy named David Marks. David Marks was in one of the earliest incarnations of the Beach Boys. I think Al Jardine was in very, very early. Then he left, maybe, I think he was going to school or something like that, somewhere. And then David Marks became a member of the Beach Boys. He was on the first couple of records or so. And then Al Jardine came back and David Marks left. Now, David Marks also came back to the Beach Boys when they were doing those bigger reunions, kind of just before COVID. And this was a band that he had in the late 60s, and I believe he's plays the lead guitar. I don't know if he does any vocals or anything like that. But this is wonderful. Like I said, it's kind of looks like a psychedelic record, but again, it's more of an orchestral pop record, maybe mixed with like American style pop rock. And, some of the tracks even have like a Paul Williams kind of feel, I would say. But some of my favorites on this are, let's see, Not to Know, Lebanon, Mary Jane, Come Out Tonight as well. And anyhow, it's a wonderful record. So I had gotten rid of it and then recently found it actually at a store here in Toronto called Cops. And I was really happy to track down a lovely conditioned copy of this record. So if you like that kind of late 60s orchestral pop sound with good songwriting, a little bit of more, American not rock and roll, but pop rock mixed in as well, then you might very well enjoy this record. They also have an LP before this, which I do not see that frequently, but I would love to get a copy of it, but recommended. The Moon on Imperial Records. This record is another record that I kind of didn't really know I was looking for, but when I saw it, I recognized the name, and this is the only record this band had made. And again, not something you see out in the wild very much, but I was a fan of their contemporaries. It's a sort of pub rock band from the early 70s in England. They're called Bees Make Honey, with this lovely graphic on the EMI label. The only record they made. And that's the back cover right there. Not in amazing shape, but once again, I couldn't resist picking this up because, and I didn't know many songs from this, but I just thought I would take a chance because I do love a lot of those, early 70s kind of pub rock. If the Dave Edmunds records, the Brinsley Schwarz records, and Bees Make Honey, I think were kind of contemporaries of Brinsley Schwarz, but maybe kind of like they were influenced by Brinsley Schwarz and, sort of in the shadow of that band. Brinsley Schwarz, of course, being, one of the early bands that Nick Lowe was in. And he wrote the majority of their songs. And then that band also ended up sort of morphing. After the mid-70s, they kind of morphed into The Rumor, which was Graham Parker's band, if you're familiar with Graham Parker. And The Rumor. But Bees Make Honey, this record was, it's again, UK bands take on American R&B and rock and roll. So if you like that UK kind of pub rock take on that kind of music, I think you'll enjoy this record. Some great production, really dry and cool sounding, but great players and really catchy songs and everything like that. Funny enough, it was produced, when is this from? 1973. And it was produced, let's see, where was it recorded? Some of it was recorded in Rockfield, which is Monmouth. Where is that? I believe some of it was done in Wales, I believe. But it was produced by a guy named David Robinson, who later went on to form or co-form Stiff Records in around 1976. So that's kind of an interesting connection from pub rock into the punk rock world. But it's funny how this band would have been influenced by Brinsley Schwarz, but there's a song on here. What's it called? I forget which one it is now. But anyhow, there's a song on here. Rats, which one is it? Blood Brother, maybe? Or Bloodshot Eyes? Anyhow, I'm sorry, I've forgotten. But if you know the album by the band Rockpile, there's a song on there called Play That Fast Thing One More Time. And it sounds exactly like this song. So you would have had Nick Lowe sort of taking a cue from them after they had taken a cue from Nick Lowe in Brinsley Schwarz. So anyhow, everything comes full circle. But Bees Make Honey, wonderful pub rock record. Recommended if you like that kind of stuff. And it's just on the typical EMI record label there. Want to check that out. Nothing too exciting to see, but wonderful. Really happy to find that. I found that here at Sonic Boom Records here in Toronto. So a lot of the stuff was found, not all of it, but some of it just found out in the wild here in Toronto, and that's kind of the fun way to stumble across records. A lot of these probably would have been easy to track down on Discogs or eBay, but it's fun to surprise yourself. But anyhow, I'm very fortunate because there's a lot of, within 15 minutes of my front door, there's about 8 great record stores. So I'm very spoiled in that retrospect. This is a band from South America. And a friend of mine was always sending me tracks to listen to by this band. It's like, check this out. This is really cool. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. And I enjoyed it, but, it's not a record I specifically went to seek out, online or anything like that. But I stumbled across this in another, a Toronto record store here as well. I think this was also at Cops, maybe. I forget. But anyhow, now I'm going to try and pronounce the name in Spanish or Portuguese. The band is called Secos y Mollados. Anyhow, it's in very, very, very rough shape. It's from 1973, kind of an outrageous cover there. But I hope I pronounced that correctly. When I was growing up, going to school, I had to take French. It was mandatory. Or I also had to take Latin or German. But we had no Spanish at our school. So Secos y Mollados. Please leave me a comment and let me know if I'm pronouncing that wildly incorrectly. So this would have been, I think, a lot of people collect that real first wave of Tropicalia records from Brazil, Os Mutantes, Caetano Veloso, and artists like that. And I think this band would have been more like the next generation. This is early 70s. This was apparently a very, very popular record in South America. And, it's rock pop. I really don't know, what they're singing about, because I'm not very familiar with the language, but the sound of the recording and the playing and the instrumentation is really cool. And for someone like me who had, who has the good fortune to be able to make records, write songs and make records and everything, like this is the kind of record where I would listen to it and I'd be like, oh, that's a cool production idea, or wow, that's a really cool sound to the drums or something like that. And I might try and nick an idea here and there. So it's always fun to listen to records like that, even just from beyond a pure, the pleasure of listening to the music as well. It's kind of like a good little way to study up on some cool stuff. Like I said, it's in really rough shape. I think this is the second pressing of this record. It was very, very inexpensive because it was in such rough shape. And I'll show you how rough it is. Anyhow, there's the label on the Continental record label, but I don't know if you can see. It's in super rough shape, but it's pretty awesome. And like I said, I think it is the second pressing, because I think it was originally a gatefold, but this one comes with an insert, which I think was the gatefold. And it's in a little bit rough shape there, but you can see all the lyrics and a really cool graphic. But definitely has seen better days. Anyhow, I was happy to track it down, and or not even track it down, stumble across it really, and because I knew a couple of songs from this, and I was happy that I gave it a try. And like I said, in this insanely rough shape, I think it was $6 or $7, so worth picking up just for that, even though it was in kind of rough shape. The last record I wanted to talk about today is maybe not that rare. I see it once in a while, but it's something that I picked up, maybe not super recently, but maybe towards the end of last year. When I was growing up, synth pop was massive. In the early 80s, you have, Human League, Depeche Mode, and Soft Cell. And I was a fan of, all of those bands, but particularly Soft Cell. I always thought they were great songwriters. And in particular, Mark Almond, I thought he was a great lyricist. And nothing on those other bands, but I thought he had a really unique perspective, and I really think those first three Soft Cell records have a lot of great songs on it, great production, and I think David Ball came up with some really cool music. But at the same time as they were making those Soft Cell records, Mark Almond also was making records under the name of Mark and the Mambas, and it sounds nothing like Soft Cell. Some of these songs, this is a double record, by the way. It's a portrait of Mark on the cover. There's a gatefold with a bunch of kind of Polaroids from the making of the record. And a nice collage on the back. But I believe this record came out in, sorry, I do have some notes on it here, 1982. So it would have been the height of Soft Cell, like Tainted Love, a #1 record across the world and everything like that. And yet he was making these really unusual records. The originals on this record, some of them are actually collaborations with Matt Johnson from the band The. And so if you're a fan of The, you might enjoy this record. But the first track, which is a collaboration with him, it's called Untitled, is fantastic. But he also, another song, Angels, is great as well. But he also does a lot of covers on this record. It's funny because Soft Cell were also known for covers, Tainted Love being a big, northern soul song in the 1970s, and the other song, What, I think was a cover as well. But he's not covering soul stuff on here. He does a cover of Big Louise, which is a Scott Walker song. He also does Caroline Says by Lou Reed, If You Go Away by Jacques Brel, and also Terrapin by Syd Barrett. So definitely different set of influences on show on this record. But it's kind of like a double album. It's almost like a double EP. There's only about 3 or 4 songs on each side, and the inner sleeves kind of look like that, sort of a little pencil illustration. And the labels they're both kind of similar. It's kind of like a Polaroid of Mark Almond and on the same label as Soft Cell, the Some Bizarre label, just a plain label on the other side. But wonderful stuff. And his singing is great, and the originals. I mean, the covers are cool, and it's kind of fun to hear, but it's really the originals that stand out here. So if you're a fan of, I was almost going to say, if you're a fan of Soft Cell, you might want to check these out. But maybe if you're a fan, a casual fan of Soft Cell, you might find this a little unusual. There's another Mark and the Mambas record. I think there might be another 12-inch and another LP that's like a double LP maybe that I don't have. And this one I remember seeing this when this came out in the 80s, and it just the cover kind of freaked me out a little bit as a kid, and I didn't really delve into it. But it's just it's a wonderful album, and just really, really cool production and cool songs. So anyhow, it's an unusual listen, but a really worthwhile listen. So that's kind of all the records that I have, but I also wanted to mention there was a couple of people who reached out to me on the first little YouTube video that I did. I showed some vintage rock magazines that I'd picked up. I love old rock ephemera and rock magazines, and I found some at the WFMU record fair, and I showed some of them on the channel, and some people reached out and said, "Oh, it's cool. I'm glad that you showed some of those because I love old rock magazines and stuff." So I thought I would show, there's a couple more that I picked up in the past couple of weeks, and I just thought I would show them or mention them just at the very end here. They're two magazines that are called Who Put the Bomp. Here's one from summer of 1974. I love Who Put the Bomp, and they later be called Bomp, but the graphics in them are super cool. And the articles, like, once again, you need a magnifying glass. Like I'm getting old, and I can't. I really need the glasses that you buy at the drugstore. You know what I mean? I really should get a pair. But Greg Shaw was the man behind this magazine. Like I said before, an archivist, record producer, released reissues of older records, but also championing younger bands at the time, but also writing about bands. Like I said before, in 1974, writing records about the seeds, American garage, psychedelic rock kind of stuff. This one was great. And then I found another issue from the fall of 1975. They're branching out into color. And this one's, got a lot of stuff on surf music, and huge article on introduction to Dutch rock, which would feature the Q65 and the Outsiders and Shocking Blue and everything. Like, who's writing about that stuff in the mid 1970s? Nobody really, except fanzines like this, and they're sort of spreading the word or keeping the name alive of a lot of different things. And they review, they'll review ABBA, but also do a deep dive on Barry Mann and a band called the Dudes, and what else? The New England underground scene and things like that. So they had their own taste and their own perspective on rock and everything like that. And just all the ads are cool and stuff like that. Cool graphics. Anyhow, I love all that kind of stuff. I love old stuff and old magazines. But the real treat in this issue that really caught my eye when I brought them home, because I was looking through for fun the letters section of a magazine from 1974. Yeah, it's my kind of fun. Anyhow, but just curious, what are people writing to a rock magazine in 1974? What are they writing about? What do they have to say? But what I thought was interesting, or what caught my eye, was a letter titled "Rock on TV," Rock on Canadian TV. Sorry, the print is so small. I have to move it a little bit far away so I can read it properly. But it's a young gentleman writing, saying like, "Hey, I really enjoyed your articles on Walker Brothers and PJ Proby." Oh, that's interesting. And he also said, since it's he's talking about Canadian TV, he's referring to a CBC TV show called Take 30 in the late 60s that it basically had huge. I don't know, it's like they, 20 minutes or so on The Who. They traveled to, the two hosts traveled to the UK and interviewed Pete Townsend and had footage of The Who and everything. And those two hosts, by the way, were Adrian Clarkson, who later went on to become the Governor General of Canada, which is great seeing her and Pete Townsend together, her and Keith Moon. And also, I believe the other host is Paul Soules, I think his name is. He later became the voice of Spider-Man, if anybody remembers the 70s awesome sort of mod Spider-Man cartoons. So those people, you know, they started off great and they went on to even more awesome things. But anyhow, so this gentleman's writing about that TV program, and you can find it on YouTube. It's great. Take 30. Just Google or type in Take 30, The Who, and you'll find it. And references a couple other CBC things. And I was like, oh, this is like a Canadian kid in the early 70s. Right? It's like, who is it? And it says Bob Lawrence. And I was like, I know a guy named Bob Lawrence. Like I knew him later in the early 80s from Halifax. He worked at record stores, then eventually moved to Toronto and worked at a record store here in the late 80s, early 90s, and called Vortex Records. Sort of ran one of the stores here. I was like, could that be him? But then when I looked back and I was like, I have PJ Proby. Like that's kind of the music that he liked. I sent him this article and he was like, yeah, that was me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. And so apparently he used to keep up a correspondence as well and either sell or trade records with Greg Shaw, who was the editor of the magazine. And I couldn't believe it. So it was just such a treat and a shock to find a letter by young Robert Lawrence, in who put the bump in there. And whatever, a guy I've known for many, many years. And I was so happy to find this and happy to send it to him. And he sort of regaled me with some other stories from the era. So it was nice to find that and to find it and read it. Fantastic. And to send it to him. So that was a real cool treat that I found in this issue of Bomb. So anyhow, love finding that kind of stuff out in the wild. Thanks very much for watching. And like I said, please feel free to comment if there's any of those things that are these records that you're interested in, or that, like I said, you know more about than I do, or if you're interested in them. And thanks very much for tuning in, and stay safe wherever you are. And hopefully we'll see you next time. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks.